Always hiding the microphones. Oh. All right. All right, we are at go time here. I want to make sure get through as many questions, and then I have a short Kahoot. I'm sorry, I apparently created the quiz, chose questions, like the practice quiz, chose questions, created the quiz, set the grade to 0 so it doesn't screw up your average, and then forgot to add the questions to the quiz. So I just did that. So now there's a bunch of questions you can do. Sorry, my brain is dead. If you had seen me yesterday, you would have understood my brain death. So they're there now, and you can practice them, and I think I set it to unlimited attempts. Okay. All right. Let's go through these. And I will say, like, if the questions, because we want to make sure people's real questions get answered. If the questions get too silly, we're just gonna end this part and go straight to the Kahoot. So please, I'm usually okay with, having some fun, but today let's just keep it Not fun. Boring. Let's keep it boring until we get to the Kahoot. All right. I told you regionalization was going to screw you up, and it did. So here, okay, regionalization, right? Basically, this is this idea that one of the ways that globalization maybe is tempered a little bit, right? So that it doesn't sort of overwhelm local cultures, is that within globalization, different regions kind of group themselves together, right? So countries that either share a similar kind of geographic region or sometimes a kind of cultural affinity might group themselves together and sort of as a group, they'll create common markets, export their cultural products, and maintain culture within those groupings. So like if you think of like Anglo-America, right? So Canada, the US, the UK, Australia, New Zealand is sometimes what's called the Anglosphere, right? Where basically all these English-speaking countries export culture to each other, right? They support each other, they have free trade agreements, and sort of prop up Anglophone culture. Latin America could be an example as well, where right, they have, for the most part, except Brazil, a common language in Spanish. They kind of trade with, amongst each other, create cultural texts that are exchanged amongst each other and Spanish-speaking people to create sort of Latin America as its own kind of regional blocking that maintains the culture of that place while still interacting with the globe and the global economy in major ways. Do you need to know each generation in depth? I mean, a kind of general outline, right, of who they are, for the most part, should do the trick, right? Know when they were roughly, but I'm not going to ask you like, what year ranges are the baby boomers? Like, not that specific, but have an idea about why they were important. Okay. Can I give an example of an initiation rite with a ritual rejection, death, and birth? Sure. So, I mean, in something like Christianity, right, as a religion, baptism is exactly this sort of thing, right? So if you've ever seen maybe you haven't, it's less common than it was, but like when you get someone baptized, you get baptized, right? There's like a script you have to answer, like, do you reject Satan and all his empty promises, right? And you're supposed to reject Satan and all his empty promises. So that's a ritual rejection, right? And then there is a ritual death, right? So in older traditions or certain newer ones, it's like full immersion in water, right? So you would go completely underwater, that's like a ritual drowning or a ritual death, and then coming out of the water is a ritual rebirth. Right? And now, anyway, we'll leave it at that. We'll say that is an example. I could complicate it by telling you the nuances of different Christian traditions, but that would muddy the example. So that would be an example of that. And again, like you could have in, say, joining a biker gang, right? You would have a ritual rejection, committing a crime, right? So you're rejecting society by committing a crime. And then once you become a full member, you take off your jacket that had no patches on it. That's your ritual death. And you put on a new one that has, say, your full Hell's Angel patch on it. That's a ritual rebirth now as a Hell's Angel. Alrighty. Can I give an example of resocialization? Okay, so the two principal ones are prison, right? So you go to prison and you suddenly have to, your old social ties and your old social roles are all done away with. You have to sort of re-socialize yourself to the culture of the prison. So who are you in prison? What do you need to do in prison? What role are you going to play, right? Do you have to fight someone on the first day? These sorts of things. What's your relationship now to the correctional officers, the guards, right? That's re-socialization. Cults also do re-socialization, right? Where basically you cut off your old social ties, right? And then you adopt, new identities often. Maybe they give you a new name or something. And you adopt a new role within the cult, right? So a follower of movementarianism or something like that. Okay. Okay, I did resocialization. Can I give a brief example of self-identity and the internet? Okay, so do you need to know Jean-Paul Sartre? No. I mean, in general, because he's one of the most influential philosophers. For life, you should probably know Sartre, but for the purposes of our class, you do not need to know Jean-Paul Sartre. Right. Okay. Potentially, yes. That could cause an element of resocialization, especially if you had to adopt the new norms of that country. Potentially, though it wouldn't be as total necessarily as say, prison. Is race and incarceration on the midterm? Okay, so the review, I sort of do my best to cover as much material in a short period of time as possible, but I don't cover everything. So I haven't picked the questions yet in terms of race and incarceration. There could be a question, but it's likely going to be mostly, about why certain groups are more targeted, right? So think of like them committing street crimes as opposed to white collar crimes. That's probably as deep as we'll go with that particular piece of knowledge. Okay. What does adaptation mean in socialization terms? So it basically means, right, the environment, you get some kind of stimulus from the environment, and you as a person, right? So I don't know, a new teacher comes into the classroom and they treat you in a different way, and you, therefore, your behavior adapts to that new social environment. That's what adaptation means in socialization terms. You're always adapting to your social environment. We need to know rejected. Oh, hang on. Okay, let's do this in order. The questions get bigger and bigger. Could you just give a brief example of self-identity and the internet? Okay. So here, right, my friend Kelly Bergstrom, great scholar, did her work in World of Warcraft, specifically on men who like to play as female characters. Right, what she said was that this kind of world where you could choose your avatar gave you a chance to reshape your identity, to take on a different role that you might not have had otherwise, right? Or maybe you wanted to play as a big-breasted night elf. That's what her paper's called, Big-Breasted Night Elves and the Men Who Love to Play as Them. That's the title of the paper, right? So you can explore identity. You can be a troll. You can explore. You can try on different social roles online in ways that are difficult in everyday life. I go over labeling theory. Labeling theory, right, is basically the idea that nothing is deviant in and of deviant or criminal in and of itself, that things only become deviant or criminal when they're labeled as such, right? So no action is ultimately deviant. It is only in its kind of social construction as deviant that it actually is treated as deviant by other people. Oh, sorry, I might have accidentally imported some race and ethnicity questions. There is nothing on race and ethnicity on the midterm. We're going to do that after. So if there's race and ethnicity questions, I'm sorry, I'll double check them after the midterm, but they won't be on the midterm. I'll take them out later. I just imported it from last semester. Apparently I made it further in winter 2023. Do you need to know the reject accept table with different colors? Yes, there's definitely going to be like 100 questions about that. That's a really good basis for questions, and it'll give you a little story. Freya wanted to be a doctor, but she ended up failing out of school and giving up and dealing drugs. What we classify her as on that table? So definitely know that table. How is regionalization different from globalization? How is regionalization different from globalization? So globalization is when like a big international brand adopts some aspect of a regional or a local kind of culture in order to appeal more in that region. Again, it's a sort of thing like, okay, globalization is never total because McDonald's will come in and they'll have the McCrispy Chinese or the McAloo Gobi or whatever, right? So to appeal more to that market. It's still a global brand, but it has a kind of local flavor. Whereas regionalization is like regions kind of grouped together and they still interact with the global economy and other global cultures, but they do so as kind of a block. Okay, I did that fast. Your midterm 1 mark changed this morning. Is there a reason why? It went up, I take it. Are you complaining? You can come see me after class. I can take that mark away. This is one of those like, don't question it, just go kind of moments. I regraded a question yesterday because, talking with a student who came in, I was like, all right, is this a good question? And I was sort of like, well, I can see their point. I was like, maybe that was a question that was poorly worded. So I was like, okay, I won't just give that one student a grade for being the squeaky wheel. Everybody gets a grade who answered that question, so that's why it went up. I don't remember what question it was because I have the memory of a goldfish at this point. But yes, if your grade went up this morning, it's because I regraded a question. So 3 questions total out of the 120 that I had for the first midterm, I ended up regrading So sometimes making multiple answers possible. Well, typically. So basically, if you answered in one of two or sometimes one of four ways, you would have gotten it right. Okay. You're welcome. You know what? If there's a bad question, we try to fix things. It happens, right? And if you come and see your midterms, there's more chance. If more people come, there's more chance it'll happen. Please don't come. I'm too busy. I'm kidding. But also don't come. Okay, will the midterm have lots of questions from the practice midterm like the last one? It depends how attentive I am when I'm putting the final list together, so maybe. Sometimes I'm not the most attentive. I try to avoid that, but we never know. Do we need to know okay, hang on. Could I explain the difference between state policy and social structure? Aspect of semi-peripheral countries. So social structure has more to do with kind of how the society is organized. And the idea from Wallerstein is the more it resembles sort of a classical kind of Anglo-American, like elite class, middle class, or rich middle class and poor, right? That kind of like similar social structure, the more it's likely to succeed, right? When you have, say, a really big or a really small elite and a lot of poor people, it's a very different kind of social structure than you would have in the West. State policy more has to do with kind of how the state ultimately organizes the economy and involves itself in the economy, right? So the more it's like, especially now, like a free market economy, the better it's going to do because it's going to get more support from those rich countries in terms of investment, right? So, if they make it a friendly environment for investment. What do we exactly have to know regarding stats on crimes and crime severity for the midterm? I mean, just general kind of knowledge, right? Crime went down. It went up, say, from about the 1960s till about the end of the 1980s, after which it declined. Crime severity also declined, with the exception of like violent crime. But that's, beyond that, don't worry about it too much. Wouldn't glocalization or being global also mean including local services in our lives instead of services that are mainstream? Not in Roland Robertson's definition, which is the one that I care about. Will this lecture be recorded because you're going over a lot of important concepts? It is currently being recorded. I am way ahead of you. See, I'll show you. See, right here. I could click stop streaming and it would stop, but it is currently being recorded. I'm way ahead of you, as always. What are my office hours for next week? You'd like to come by and review the first midterm? I'm taking a break from reviewing midterms next week because it's been like 3 weeks of all the time. So the week after I will have some, but also it's too late. The first midterm has passed and is long gone. But I'll still let you see it, but not next week because I actually need to mark some stuff. And unfortunately, I've had so many office hours from the 4 classes I'm teaching that I'm like 3 weeks behind on stuff. So next week I'm going to focus on marking. The question I think I cleared it. Okay, that was what's the difference between I and me? Okay, so I don't know if it's still there, but I remember the question. Right, so this is the concept. I think it's from Mead. I can't remember exactly. But the I is the kind of selfish, impulsive self that exists from birth, right? This is the one that desires things like I want food, I want warmth and comfort, I want love and attention, these things. The me is more the self-concept that develops once you start developing your own personality separate from your parents. It's less impulsive and it has more of a sense of identity based on it. Can I give more modern examples for the pyramid of deviance and crime? All right, I'm going to see if I can see if I can remember them off the top of my head. So something like a consensus crime today, right? So something that would be seen as extremely deviant and very dangerous to society, pedophilia in Canada and the US anyway, right? Obviously it's different in other places, right? Something that we would see as incredibly harmful, right, would be something like pedophilia, right? There's a pretty strong consensus and it's punished very harshly, right? You would end up in prison and then on the sex offenders registry. Okay. As a conflict crime, I would say using some forms of drugs, right? So let's say something like ecstasy, right? Technically a crime, but not everybody agrees it should be. It would still be punished to some extent, but there's not a total social consensus. Social deviation, something that would still be treated, relatively harshly, would probably be like expressing anti-LGBTQ kind of views, right? Now, it's not a crime, but it's probably going to, if you do that in the university or in like a high school, you're probably going to get hauled into the principal's office and get talking to, maybe get suspended. That kind of a thing would be a social kind of deviation. So still treated relatively harshly, but not criminalized in a sense. On what was it? Social diversion. Let me think. What would be an interesting social diversion at this point? I don't know. Like, let's say you walk around all the time wearing cat ears, right? A headband with cat ears. Kind of a little odd. You're probably going to get kind of people looking at you a little funny, right? With the squinty eye. But, at the end of the day, it's not seen as very serious. You're just a little bit eccentric. It's not Halloween anymore. So, okay. I think I did a good job of that. Social learning theory or learning theory is basically just the idea that social behaviors are learned from models, essentially. Like, you model your behavior after people. Or a learning theory, is that deviation? Basically people learn to be deviant, right? This is where, people aren't deviant. Ultimately, I'm thinking social learning theory. People don't know what deviance is. It's a learned behavior, right? I thought I was making progress, but there's still 13 questions. Strain theory with the boxes. Well, that was like 20 minutes of a lecture. All right, I'll come back to that if I have time. I'm trying to remember what was in those boxes. Okay, so can I explain the difference between Thomas' theorem and self-fulfilling prophecy? So Thomas' theorem is a little broader, right? Basically the idea that things we believe to be true, we kind of bring into existence, right? So, like, you think Canada exists as a country, right? Even though there's no squiggly lines on a map on the globe, right, that separate Canada from the US, but you know that when you cross this imaginary frontier, somewhere between Lethbridge and Billings, Montana, that you have moved from Canada into America, and that the people who are standing there were once Canadian and now they're American, right? Your belief that there's nothing really essentially true about that, right? There's nothing ultimately in like objective terms that makes northern Montana particularly different from southern Alberta. But your belief that you're now in a different country and the people here are different ultimately kind of brings that into existence. And your belief that these people are my fellow citizens and these people aren't, right, ultimately brings that into existence. Self-fulfilling prophecy is a little bit more personal, right? It's more like the idea that if you think you're going to do bad at something, you will then, like, they're related and similar, but one is a little bit more specific. You will then take actions that ultimately bring that specific outcome about, right? So I think I'm going to do bad on the test. So I get drunk the night before, do nothing but play Rocket League and don't study. And then I do bad on the test and I'm like, see, I did bad on the test because I'm dumb. Okay. Where are those? All right. Does modernization theory have something in common with McDonald'sization? A little bit, but just leave modernization theory in its own box, right? It's more of an explanation of why we have global inequality, right? That some places have Western practices and some places don't, right? So leave that in its own box. Don't mix it with McDonald'sization. Don't worry about that. What do I mean when I say you fashion new bodies from old? How might you modify your body, right, for certain roles, right? We now have technologies, right, where we can modify bodies. I don't know, if you want to appear more attractive by social standards, right, you might get a boob job or a nose job, right? Or, you might get the stuff injected into your lips to have fuller lips, or butt implants or whatever, right? We can fashion our bodies in different ways based on what we think people are going to like, right? So if, I don't know, like, you're trying to find a romantic partner and you think like women only like guys that are chiseled, right? Okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to pop a bunch of steroids, hit the gym, and clearly it's never been a problem for me. You might pop a bunch of steroids. So you're fashioning a new body out of your old one with the help of some kind of technology, right? So, take a lot of testosterone, hit the gym, watch your brain shrink, all that fun stuff. That's what I mean. Okay. Can I go over strain theory again? Okay, hang on. This one's easy. What do we need to know? We need to know the reported crime? Thanks. Okay, Google, go away. Oh, that was funny. I love it when that happens. Okay, do you need to know the reporting? No, okay, don't worry about the graph. Just know that basically crime started to go down from about 1990 forward. What is victimless crime? That one's super easy. It's a crime that doesn't have a victim. There you go. Sorry, being snarky. Okay, typically crimes that are victimless are things that are defined as crimes, but where both parties are consenting, right? So purchasing drugs from a drug dealer, he is committing a crime by selling it to you. You are committing a crime by purchasing those drugs. That is a victimless crime. Prostitution, also a victimless crime. You, as the buyer of sex, have sought out that service. The seller of sex is offering that service. You're both consenting, at least in theory. But so there's no victim there, but it's still criminal. Okay. Very good. Very good. Okay. What is the difference between separation and transition? You know what? Don't worry about. There's not a question that's that defined. So I'm gonna just say, don't worry about it. Okay, no, this question went away already. I need to clear them all. Is police brutality a victimless crime? Was the person being brutalized consenting to it? Please, Officer Steve, hit me some more. No. Sorry, I shouldn't treat you like you're dumb. No. Obviously not. The victim is the person being brutalized. Unless, unless it's like a weird BDSM thing and someone's dressed up as a police officer, but then we're in a different territory. Altogether. Now I've put a horrible image in everyone's mind. And can I explain global poverty? Global poverty, as defined by the United Nations, is extreme poverty is people living on less than $2 a day, purchasing power parity. Yes, I'm answering my own question apparently. Although there should be a doctor there, frankly. Okay. Can I go over strain theory again? All right, so the basic outline of strain theory, I'll do the boxes in a sec, is that why do people commit crimes? Basically because they feel strain, which is caused by their expectations not being met, right? They expect that society is going to offer them certain things like opportunities, right? You can get rich if you work hard. You can, have a family and a house and 2 cars and 3.5 dogs and 1.2 children, or whatever, right? Whatever the kind of stereotype is. When that doesn't happen, people might turn to crime to meet their needs, right? Because that's what they want out of life. When they don't get it, there's a strain there that might lead them to criminality. Okay. Do you need to know the experiences that shaped our country for baby boomers? I mean, in general terms, I'm not going to ask you what was Trudeau-mania, but just know, right, Vietnam War, they were born during this economic boom. They're the biggest generation. Generally, all that's fair. Do you need to know the name of the current generation? No, because sometimes people call it Generation Alpha or Generation Prime, but we're not quite there yet. We don't know much about them because they're still little. What's the difference between self-report and victimization surveys? Self-report includes, have you committed any crimes? Victimization is just, have you been the victim of a crime? Okay? Although self-report will also include questions about, were you the victim of a crime? But also questions about, have you committed any crimes? Okay. Well, I'm almost done. I'm amazing. Humble. I'm humble. Can I give an example of what you need to know for each generation? Why do most sociologists not consider culture as a source of globalization? Say, you spelled my name wrong. E-R-Y? Where are we? Britain? Come on. Why don't you just spell it Geoffrey? Come on, guys. Do better. That's all I have to say. Criticize me for saying Kiev instead of Kyiv, and then you write my name wrong. I'm so insulted. Okay, I'm just kidding, by the way. You have to know Mead's 4 stages of development? Yes, it is on the slides, and I talked about it, so you need to know. Why do most sociologists not consider culture as a source of globalization? There we go. That's much better, and also much worse. What am I, Chaucer? Okay. I'll answer you, but only in Old English. For hoof, no, I'm kidding. It sounds more like German. This is what you get when you get a professor who did an undergraduate degree in English. Okay. a PhD and a master's in sociology. Good times. All right, so why do most sociologists not consider culture as a source of globalization? Right, because what drives globalization, right? It's more technology and economics. Culture is sort of a product within globalization, but it's not kind of at the core of it, right? It's those other factors, politics, economics especially, that drive globalization. Culture is like a product, right? So you sell movies, but it's not driving it at the end of the day. All right, Can I give an example of what you need to know for each generation? I mean, what's on the slides? I don't know. I haven't quite written the exam yet. So, I will ponder that. But just like the general outline, like why are they significant, right? Boomers, why are they significant? The biggest demographic bubble in kind of the history of the West, right? They're the largest generation ever born, right? Huge. And they stuck around forever, kind of keeping things going for a long time. Oh, Jar Jar Abrams, I refuse to answer your questions. Okay. What is McDonald'sization? McDonald'sization is an extension of rationalization, right? Basically taking rationalization to a global scale, exporting the highly rationalized practices of American corporations and business practices and moving them out to a global scale. All right. I will not take any more questions after these. Medicalization of deviance, right? Once it was, why are boys so hyper in class? Oh, they must be poorly disciplined. Now it's like, why are boys so hyper in class? It must be because they have ADHD. Let's pump them full of meds, right? That's the medicalization of deviance. Instead of explaining deviance from a behavioral point of view or a moral point of view, we now explain it from a psychological or biomedical point of view, right? All right, can I explain strain theory with the boxes? Okay, let's see. So you have, all right, so you have institutional means, right? So the really important terms are cultural goals and institutional means, right? Cultural goals, what do people want out of life, right? What does culture tell them they should want out of life? In Canada, US, it's like get rich, have a family, 2 cars, a house, all that stuff. What's the way that you get it? That's the institutionalized means. That is, I know I'm gonna run out of time to do the Kahoot. We got lots of time. Got 20 minutes, we're fine. The institutionalized means is how should you get that? So go to university, get a wage slave kind of job, work for 40 years, die of a heart attack at 68 after retiring, right? That's it. Sorry, everything but the heart attack part is the institutional means. Like, how are you supposed to go about it? Right, so what do we have for our boxes? We've got our conformists, right? So those are people who are, I want the cultural goal and I work towards it. So I accept that I want to get rich. I went to university, I got the degree, I got married, I had my kids, I bought a house, I bought a dog. Increasingly for Gen Z, it's just like skip the kids part, buy 5 dogs. But nevertheless, so you can never go on vacation because you can't take your dog everywhere. Okay, so that's the conformist, right? You do everything you're supposed to in the way that you're supposed to, and you have the same goals as the culture tells you should have. Okay. The second Kahoot will be posted on eClass. I just haven't gotten there yet, and we will do that in a sec. All right, the next box, innovator, right? You share the cultural goal, right? You want to get rich. You want to have like a middle class or rich life, but you reject the way to get it. So I don't know, you drop out of college and found a tech startup, or you become a drug dealer and start selling drugs, right? So you make lots of money and you want that kind of lifestyle. You want the BMW, but you find a different way to get it other than the normal institutionalized mean. So you accept the cultural goal, reject the institutional mean. The ritualist, right? So that's the box. I don't remember what color it was, but it's below conformist. I swear to God, someone put this question on there to see if I could do this without the chart. And I can, I swear. So you have the ritualists, right? So they have probably abandoned in some way the cultural goal, right? They don't really think they're going to get rich. They don't believe that those things are valuable. Maybe they don't want to get married, but they continue going through the motions, right? So they still have a job. They still work. Maybe, we gave the example. Maybe they're still on Tinder or other dating apps. I know there are others, plenty of Bumbles. I don't know. So they keep going through the motions, but they don't really want the cultural goal, but they keep going through the motions. Then you have your next to that, right below innovator and beside ritualist, you have the retreatism or retreatist, right? They don't share the cultural goal, right? So they're not trying to, does thou not wanteth Kahoot? I doth. Forsooth and yes. I was really bad at Chaucer, to be honest. I read it in translation. When you have to get English translated into English, that's not great. What was I saying? Right, so the retreatist, they reject the cultural goal and the institutional means, right? So they're probably not going to have a job. They're probably not going to be going even through the motions, and they don't share that cultural goal, right? This is kind of the give up. This is the live in your parents' basement playing Call of Duty all day. That's the culture. That's the goal you have. It's just play as much Call of Duty and, I don't know, watch a lot of porn, right? That's what you want to do. And you don't have a job, you just sponge off society. That's the best way to do it. And then rebellion is you have a new means and a new goal. You are a Marxist revolutionary, and you are like, society is corrupt. We need to remake society. Time to murder the bourgeoisie and seize the means of production through violence, right? Or you're the Joker and you're like, I just want to see the world burn. All right, that's the best I can do. Without redoing that entire thing. Kahoot. Not looking behind me. I refuse. I'll do it later. It's probably that ghost guy from the movie Scream. Katoot. All right, I've done all of your questions. Thanks for keeping it on topic, folks. All right, hang on. Can I'm going to make a terrible admission to you. I forgot to bring treats. And I'm going to blame my daughter for that because she's a terrible person. She missed the bus today, and I had to then scramble to get my one son, who doesn't have school today, to get him over to his grandparents because he cannot be left alone. Nope. Huzzah. That's the one. So I had to drive him and my other son to the West End and get my daughter to school. And in the kerfuffle, I forgot to get treats. So I'm sorry. There are no prizes this time. And I could have just scooped up like a bag of Halloween candy and brought it. But my son would have not forgiven me. All right. However, if you win and you would like celery, radishes, orange bell pepper, a Granny Smith apple, or a navel orange, I could probably accommodate you there. Or like those little Korean beef jerky bites from Costco. I have a bag of those. So if you win and you want one of those things, come talk to me. Otherwise, I'm really sorry. I've failed you all. As I walked into class, I was like, whoopsie doodle. This is almost disorienting in how crazy it looks. Is that a Beavis and Butthead reference? That's very timely. T Swift? She's here? I had a classmate in college that used to call me Jeffy, and it drove me absolutely up the wall. She went on to be a famous opera singer, which is a weird bit of trivia. Holy schmoly. All right. 124. All right. All right, are we good? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I think I purged all the race and ethnicity questions from this one. So let's go. Ah, my God. All right, let's just do it. Whatever. A Kahoot by Kahoot. All right. 3, 2, 1, go. Quiz. A modernization theorist would most likely recommend for an underdeveloped country. What would they recommend? Renegotiation of foreign debt, close foreign military bases, open a network of birth control clinics, or limit foreign direct investment. I think I edited this question down for length too much. Yes. Why? Right? One of the things that modernization critics said is one of the things that keeps people in poverty is having too many kids, right? Not having discipline. So renegotiating debt, that's much more of a development theory, right? A Marxist kind of way of looking at it. Closing foreign military bases, again, it's like a Marxist kind of view. Limiting direct foreign investment, again, that would be a much more development theory kind of view. So, right, people should have less babies, more self-control in how many babies they have. All right. Quiz. Heather dyes her hair blue. What kind of deviance are her actions characterized as? Is it a conflict crime, a social deviation, a consensus crime, or a social diversion? TikTok. There's going to be like up a bazillion of these questions on the exam. Choose. Oh. Right, so this is that lowest level, right? It's social diversion. Social deviation is a little bit more serious, right? That's wearing a ponytail in high school in the 1960s. As a man. As a woman, no problem. All right, let's do it. What is an example of a total institution, or an example of a total institution is it government, school, church, or prison? What is a total institution? Why is a total institution? Who is a total institution? Yeah, good stuff. We talked about this. So this, right, is a one where you're suddenly under the total control of that institution. So government doesn't control every aspect of your life. Hopefully. Unless we live in 1984. The book, not the year. Which term refers to the flow of labor, capital, information, and commodities across borders? Is it transnationalism, globalization, or imperialism? If you get this wrong, leave now. Honestly. I will be disappointed in you. No pressure. All right. For some small percentage of you, I am disappointed. Globalization, right? It's globalization, obviously. How are we going to explain that one? The following image is an example of which of Mead's stages? Is this imitation, pretending, playing complex games, or developing cultural standards? What schemery is in this question? How well do you know our friend Mead's stages? Right, this is pretending. Why is it not imitation? It's not imitation because that's like the baby babbling and trying to copy you talking. And it's not playing complex games because clearly this person is just imitating the roles they're seeing around them, right? They're just copying kind of adults playing house, right? Whereas complex games, they'd have to be playing more than one role at once. All right. I don't even care who's winning. What does it matter? In which of the following theories does modernization theory have its roots? Is it functionalism? Is it conflict theory? Is it symbolic interactionism? Or postmodernism? Yes, that's the functionalist explanation. Why? Those countries that are poor and have not modernized have institutions that are dysfunctional. Matthew, very well done. Which of the following terms refers to crimes such as copyright infringement and embezzlement? Are these street crimes? Use them on the street. Are they victimless crimes? Is there a victim? Are they white-collar crimes? Are they office crimes? Yes, these are white-collar crimes because they don't have it on the street. They are not victimless, right? When something is embezzled or you infringe on someone's copyright, obviously you've broken some kind of law and there's a victim, right? You didn't buy Taylor Swift's album or you're not listening to it on Spotify. so she doesn't get any money because you pirated it off somewhere or other. All right. Okay. Not that T Swift seems to be hurting. She just became a billionaire, so she seems to be doing okay. Okay, which of the following terms refers to crimes such as robbery and assault? Is it a street crime, a victimless crime, a white-collar crime, or an office crime? I don't know what kind of office that would be. Sometimes the options are dumb. Ta-da! Really? You just had to, huh? There's no victim. Sorry, it's like police brutality. No victim there. Okay. Hit me, Officer Steve. All right. What does modernization theory focus on? Is it the internal characteristics of poor nations, the internal characteristics of rich nations, the internal characteristics of both rich and poor nations, or the relationship between rich and poor nations? So they're really focused on why those nations are poor, right? What is dysfunctional about them? All right. Ta-da. Which of the following characterizes complex industrial societies? Is it strict social control and high conformity, less strict social control and low conformity, widely shared social norms, or stricter punishment for non-conformity? Oh, those are long answers. All right, less strict social control and low conformity, right? Because you're less socially tied to the people around you, which allows for a lot less conformity compared to, say, the medieval village. All right, almost halfway there. Which is the most controversial explanation for changing crime rates in Canada? Is it the legalization of abortion, the decrease in unemployment, the aging of the population, or the increase in law enforcement efforts? Right, it's obviously the legalization of abortion. And if you think about it, right, what would that suggest, right? Because it's like the legalization of abortion, there were less, poorer women had more abortions, so there was less crime. So what would the solution to crime be? Basically have poor people get more abortions, right? That's why it's controversial. Kill the poor. That's the way you solve crime, right? That's basically what it is. Oh, it's terrible. That's why it's controversial. The following is an argument against the idea that globalization is equal to homogenization. Is it the global supply chain commodification, localization and regionalization, international division of labor and international trade, or productivity and rationalization? So which of these has a local flavor? Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun. Right, globalization and regionalization, right? So not everything is going to end up the same because you're going to have the McFalafel when you're in Israel. And now some of you are like, I really need to study more. Okay. Keep in mind, most of you have not yet started studying, so you're all good. Intermediate globalization theory states that globalization started. Is it 30 to 40 years ago, 125 years ago, 500 years ago, or 5,000 years ago? I think I changed the answer to this from what it was originally. I hope I did, otherwise it's going to be very controversial. I had it set wrong last year. But I think I fixed it. Or at least I meant to, but maybe I forgot. I didn't change it. It should be 500 years ago. Because it's 1500, right? 1492, the Nina, the Pinta, the Santa Maria, right? But I meant to change it. I went to edit it, and then I got distracted because my brain is garbage. What is this image an example of? Keep in mind there are no stakes for this, right? Because I don't even have prizes. What is this image an example of? Globalization, localization, regionalism, or nationalism? You can get this in Tel Aviv, I think. It's Localization. Huzzah, the day is won. All right. Literally, I had that on the slide for localization. So, what would a strain theorist say the main cause is the main cause of crime? Is it labels attached to young people identifying them as deviant? Is it unpleasant and challenging urban living conditions? Is it not being able to achieve desired goals legitimately? Or the transmission of morals, beliefs, and goals? That should be easy. We talked about it 5 minutes ago. Not being able to achieve desired goals legitimately. Right. How many questions do I have left? We're not going to make it. No, we're not going to make it. What kind of deviants are illegal gambling, prostitution, and drug use examples of? Self-report crimes, harmless crimes, victimless crimes, or individual crimes. Some of these are garbledy gibberish, harmless crimes. If only that was actually a category. Right, these are all victimless crimes. Come on, right? You're not hurting anybody, are you? Which of the following do sociologists not consider as a source of globalization? Ooh, did we answer this? Which one is it? Come on. Is it culture, or culture? We just honestly talked about this. It was in the slide up. All right. Everyone's leaving me. It's culture. All right, you can stay if you want. You can do the last few, but I know people have to run. Global transmission of American values and business culture is synonymous with McDonald'sization, corporatization, commodification, or globalization. I still have 1 whole minute. Ta-da! McDonald'sization, right? American business practices is McDonald'sization. All right, what do we have next? What is McDonald'sization an extension of? Again, I said this like 5 minutes ago. Localization, globalization, commodification, or rationalization. Right, it is rationalization, which a minority answered. Okay, is this the last question? I hope so. No, 3 more? Okay. Which of the following is always searches for increased profits and markets? Is it industrial capitalism, international labor, international organizations, or industrial alliances? It's the red one. We can't take a survey because half the people left or more. All right, last 2 questions, and I will post this, so don't worry. Following refers to semi-serious acts of deviance subject to institutional control. Social deviation, social diversion, conflict crimes, or consensus crimes, right? So, some institutional control, but they're semi-serious. Which one is that? Dun, 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 dun. Which one could it be? Is it maybe the red one? Definitely the red one, because conflict crime would be serious. You wore a beard in 18th century Russia. If the NHL institutes rules against violence in hockey, how will that action be defined? Will it be as a social diversion, a social deviance, a conflict crime, or a consensus crime? Which one will it be? Is this really hard? Social deviance, right? Because it's not a crime. It's not a crime. And it's semi-serious because you might get suspended, right? So there's an institutional component. All right. I don't know who won and I don't care because I have no prizes. I'm so sorry. HT, Fogil, and someone else. All right, good job, those people who won. I'm sorry that I'm a terrible person and forgot my prizes. All right, have a good one. Good luck getting ready for the midterm. See you on Friday. What's that? You have to email me, but if you want a paper copy,